You are live now, Madam Chair.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the Philadelphia Planning Commission regular meeting on Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020 at 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mr. Forsberg?
Here.
Ms. Carluccio?
Here.
Mr. Levine?
Here.
Ms. Gruber?
Here. Item C is approval of the agenda.
Move for approval of the agenda.
We have a motion and second. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? The agenda is approved, and approval of the minutes of the May 6th, 2020 meeting.
Move for approval of the minutes.
You said move to approve the minutes. We have a motion and second. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Any changes? Any objection? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. Public comments regarding items not on the agenda. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address us on an issue that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and move on to item F, public hearings prior notice. There's none. And then item G, consideration of site plans, variance permit application, CDOR. Staff, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize. I was able to gather some information today after a request of previous variance, a request to find information on a previous variance that was requested. I do not have the complete information, but it's in the laydown, and I have a feeling I know where to find that information if everybody wants. As for the variance request today, it's in your regular packet, and there is all the permitting and information from the Army Corps, the Kenai River Center, everything that was needed to build out in those tie lands is also included in that packet.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll move on to public presentation. Please state your name and address for the record.
All right.
I think she's over there.
Oh, yeah, no, you're asking.
Yes,
It's my, okay.
it's your
My name is
turn.
John Seedor. We have a place on the slough. I don't know the address for it. We also have a home in Anchorage, 3351 South Bluff Circle, 91515. We have, I talked to Heidi before the meeting started today. It's been a long time since I've been in this room, and that time then was a pretty interesting experience for me to go through. I didn't wear glasses back then. I wear glasses now. We built in 2005. We love Seldovia. We come down here quite often, both in the summer and in the winter. We participate in virtually every activity we can in the slough. Currently, we do not have access from our property to the water directly, and what we're trying to do is put in a floating dock with a ramp. And Walt Martin is here. He's going to be doing the construction, some construction unrelated to this floating dock anyway this summer, and so we've been working with him to put together how to build a floating dock if we can get one approved. We're asking for 27 foot by 10 foot, which would leave an 18-inch variance on, or setback on the water side. So that's what we're asking for. I did some measurements last week. Excuse me. Did some measurements last week. Somebody had asked me about how the river flow comes around there, and it comes bending around our place. And from the 27 by 10 dock to the rocks would be 18 feet towards the bridge end, and it would be 16 feet additional space at the other end, at the non-bridge downstream end. Just as by way of comparison, Mr. Martin's floating dock has about 12 feet from the dock to the rocks there. So that is that information. I know somebody had also asked me, well, what do you mean by non-permanent? What I meant by that, so I used the phrase in the application non-permanent, what I meant was detachable. So if it was necessary to detach for any particular reason, because of the encroachment on that setback, it is detachable. It's not a permanent structure in that regard, but it would be permanently there, but detachable if necessary. So that's what we were trying to do. I will say we do a lot of paddle boarding and kayaking and access the water, and we swim. Currently what we do is go down to the stairs between the Stranics and use that. That's our access point. It is getting, it's not undoable yet, but it is, I'm looking forward to hopefully having a dock whereby I could have my kayaks there and be able to get in and out of the kayaks without having to carry them down to those stairs. I've addressed hopefully all the other issues in our application. I'm happy to answer any questions. I got a phone call. I was out actually in the water this afternoon. I got a phone call from Heidi asking if we had any other variances. I don't believe, I called my wife. I just got back to town an hour and a half ago or so. I'm quite confident we don't have any other variances. We had an easement, I believe it's an easement that we got in 2005, which was merely the ability to attach to the road. That has its own story and its history, and it was a difficult process. That being said, we're thrilled to be able to get to the road, and we're thrilled to be able to be here in Soldovia. But I'm quite confident, subject to my memory over 15 years, that we don't have any other variances. There was at one time, one of the drawings, and it might have been the 1999 one, we were looking for a small variance with regard to the Peninsula Street that abuts out between our place and the Walsh's, and I'm quite confident, I'm not 100% certain, that we backed off on that because we were trying to be able to get around our, from the back of our cabin to the front of the cabin on the stairs side, and we dropped that because we were just trying to get something approved, and so we backed off on that and went with, and just worked on the easement, which I've talked to Heidi about where she might be able to find those documents. I don't have them with me, and I apologize for that. But other than that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. We love it here. We're hoping to spend more time here, and we're just trying to be able to access the water without going down the stairs between the strands.
Any questions for the testifier? I do have a question, John.
Sure.
There is an application for a variance in 2005. And so are you saying that you don't have that walk on the side of your building now?
I got the documents when I got here today. I don't believe we do, and Walt may know as far as we had it surveyed, but we were trying to get that. So if you look at our place right now, we have the structure to put decking so that, and we talked we were working with Tim Dillon at that time. We were going to try to have a walk around where the stairs go down, and that would have encroached on Peninsula Street, not on the Walsh's. But I believe.
Do you have a walkway all the way around your place?
No.
Okay, so the drawings that.
I can, what page are you looking at?
I don't know, there's several drawings here.
Yeah, we do not have a walkway all around our place. We have a catwalk on the down sluice side. We have a catwalk that we put in last year. And around the other side, you cannot go around. you can go down the stairs, but you couldn't circumnavigate our cabin at that level.
Is that because the top structure overhangs the bottom?
No, it's just because we didn't go out into that peninsula, on that setback on the peninsulas.
Okay. And I just want to be clear that having one variance does not mean that you can't have a second variance or even a third or a fourth. It's just, I knew that there was something back when, and I just couldn't exactly recall what it was.
Well, there were a number of various attempts at various plans, and the bottom line there is we have two lots. They're kind of uniquely drawn because of that peninsula street, which created building difficulties for us. And they're pretty small, compact, and we're trying to do as much as we can within that. Of course, now we're coming into this request for variance on the water side so that we can have a dock to get on and off of there. So,
I have another question,
sure.
and I thought I saw a request for a building permit here
For this year?
for this particular dock. And on the last page of the packet,
The last,
I don't know if it's is it page 5, or it's page 30.
oh, okay. Yes,
It says the project will bring the total lot coverage to 270%.
well, I will ask Mr. Martin to answer that. This is.
I mean, I know that can't be
That
right.
can't be right.
And what was your original lot coverage?
And I do not know the answer to that. This one is Mr. Martin filled out. So Walt, you know,
Let me go to that page there.
it's this last week. So,
Okay, I meant the size of the dock. This,
Well, it says total lot coverage.
okay, yeah, that's typo on my part. It's gonna change the coverage an additional 270 feet. Right,
It's 270 square feet is the size of the dock.
correct.
but as far as the percentage coverage, that I can tell you this, we are on the setback line on the downside. So that would be the full.
I
That's
know,
the subject.
and part of the
Yeah.
thing is that, and I don't have it in front of me, but maybe, maybe you have it, Heidi, the total lot coverage in that area is Says residential uses shall provide at least 1,000 square feet of open space per structure. However, 50% may be a covered patio or similar structure. 25% of the land area involved shall be left with the natural vegetation and terrain existing prior to development. So I realize that this is just a dock, but this also figures into the percentage. And so that's why I'm trying to
Okay,
figure out what your lot coverage is right now.
Can you tell me just the site on
Oh, sure, it's 18.40.050.
that? 40.050. Okay, I'd say, I think that where you're talking about, where you're talking about a dock that's gonna be floating up and down with the water, the vegetation is gonna be fine, the same underneath, other than, and it'll just depend on whether where you are in the tide. With regard to the exception for a patio, our lot coverage really is just the house where we're covered, and even that, we have natural vegetation
No,
underneath.
that's why I just wondered what
Yeah.
the,
Yeah, and I don't know, I'm just giving you my best
Because-
first guess on it, but is that also, like the patio or the access, that we can't, the way our lot is, we would have to be going through the mud to get to our place unless we had a patio or some kind of access, so the vegetation is virtually the same underneath our structure, other than the footing that's on the current road. So we also have a large for our little lots, a triangular shape that goes from the beginning of the lot on that abuts peninsula out to our place, because we determined that was unbuildable because of the oddity of that. So, but the vegetation underneath is exactly the same as it's been for decades, other than where the pilings are. So I would say our total coverage, because our structure is virtually all in the air, the total coverage is well beyond the minimums required.
Polly?
yeah,
Yeah, I want to thank John for his presentation and jumping through all these hoops that our bureaucracy seems to put in front of anybody that wants to do anything. And I don't see anything objectionable about what you're asking for to put out in front of your place. And so I'm very much in favor of supporting moving this forward to the council to approve it. At some point, I guess we need to make a motion for that.
well, first of all, Chris, we have 4 people here, so we can actually approve it here. We don't have to forward it to the council.
Okay, great.
If in fact we approve it tonight.
Uh-huh.
And you correct me if I'm wrong, when you talked about the vegetation, I was under the impression that she's not talking about the ecological effect on the vegetation, she's talking about the code. So perhaps what I felt you were saying was that you may need another variance depending on the percentage of what is covered on your lot. It's not that, again, I don't want you to feel that we're against this build or anything. It's just that we have to abide by the code, not personal wishes or anything like that. So I think that's just, I thought that was the point that Polly was making. And so we're
That
just going
was-
to inform you about code and
Yeah,
things. And
no, and I
different-
appreciate that.
And that's
Not worried
why
about
I just wondered what the percentage was, so that we could determine that in fact there was 25%.
Right, and I don't know the answer to it, so I don't know the math answer. But I will, but I'd say in response for you to consider is that when you're talking about leaving it in its natural state, I mean, what you're normally talking is about a lot like the lot that this building's on. And it is eliminated this, and where we're literally, the percentage vegetation that has not been touched and still exists is an extraordinarily high percentage in relation to our total lot size, because we only have in vegetation a number of pilings, and then we have a platform over it, which is like a patio or an overhang or an umbrella that you might put out on a lot. I mean, I'm giving you how I would see it. I'm not trying to argue.
Yeah, and we're just asking, like,
Yeah.
okay, what would you say would that percentage be? You know, like,
I'm trying to figure it all out real quick, because I've measured this so many times. With this house, his decks and the new dock, we're gonna be covering about 2,300 square feet.
Which is,
And then the lot itself, I calculated it according to the measurements on the survey, were 3,484. So
so what did you say it was?
we're covering 2,300 square feet. And your lot size is 3,484. And that's fairly close within a couple of feet.
Okay, so that's
66%,
66%,
which would be.
which would leave 25%. Okay, so,
And I.
so it's
I
just
should've
really
made that
important
more
when
clear.
we're
No, that's-
doing this. So what you're saying is it's actually 66% coverage?
Correct. And what I'm saying is when this is over, first thing I'm gonna tell Walt is I'm gonna teach him how to do some math and read questions. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Okay, I do have one other question.
Okay.
And, well, okay, do you have anything else to add? Does anybody else have any questions? Roger.
What access you got from the floor to the deck? A ladder or walkway or what?
We are putting together a plan that would have Walt and I have sat on that dock for a long time trying to figure it out to keep us within our setbacks everywhere else. We're gonna have a little trap door on the corner of where the house begins the dock, that lower dock there. That will come up, there will be stairs down to a platform that will turn to the left, and there will be a ramp that goes down to the floating docks.
And that's gonna be within what's already there. Originally, we were gonna try to get a variance on the far side where they tried back in '05. And I told him, I said, gentlemen, we could put a little trap door.
I'm sorry. Well, you're gonna have to give your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, Walt Martin.
Here, stand here so Chris can see.
Okay, I'm next door neighbor to John Seedor. Okay. Okay,
So Chris can see.
yeah, okay. And you needed more information as far as my name and,
No, I just need your name and address for the
okay,
record.
I'm at 194 Bay Street. I'm one door up, down the slope from John. And I would like to say we did do a survey and everything fit within the boundaries of what's currently there. The setbacks is according to what you have now. And I had Kent and Bloom survey it, I believe it was last year, just to make sure so we would know what we had to work with. And to answer your question, the existing deck, I'm gonna build him a little fold-up trapdoor steps within the existing deck, and a little aluminum ramp to go down to the future dock. So this is kind of what we have planned. That kept us from encroaching on any more of the lot itself and kind of simplified it for us.
I live right up the road. There was quite a bit of ice and stuff flowing back and forth hard last winter. I mean, you know what I mean? It was coming in there pretty good. So you didn't want to have it pretty well secured.
No, I agree with you.
That's right on this end too. So I mean, when stuff starts coming, it comes.
Right.
I hear quite a bit in the winter, and I've seen that happen. And I totally agree. We're gonna do it. Obviously, we're gonna do whatever we can to make sure that that it's secure and that it survives winters. I'm sure for me there will be a learning curve, and I learn a lot from Walt on a daily basis, but also I watch his dock. And
Well, one thing I did learn, and coming from New Mexico, I learned it every day, but my dock actually helped deflect the ice from tangling up in my pilings. And I noticed some of the old timers, they'll tie up a big piling,
Oh,
and you
yeah.
see it in front of their house. That's to deflect the ice, and it actually gives something for that ice to bump off of, or it has a tendency to tangle up and plug up in the pilings itself. So that's a pretty common practice. So the dock is actually going to act in that favor.
I know some of the houses are low. Is yours pretty high as far as if we do have extreme high tide? Is that
our
high?
house, we're high, well, I'm not a contractor. We are substantially higher than Walt's dock. I think we're substantially higher than Tuggle's boat, or the Walsh's. And we're like a foot or so lower than Gary Milton's dock.
Yeah, just as long as you got enough freeboard, you know, if you have extreme high tides, that dock don't go underwater or flex.
Right.
You got plenty of that.
I believe we do.
Way more than that. Yeah, it would take something that's so low you've never had before to get that high.
I just noticed there's a few houses down there that aren't high enough. at those extreme high tides.
Yeah.
Couple of
So I have a question. So when you were looking over the conditions for granting a variance, you answered one of the questions. And you're using the reason for this as that normal access to the water requires us to use the stairs between the Stranick residences. This is difficult for launching kayaks and paddleboats. Item B of the application says financial hardship or inconvenience shall not have been caused or shall not be the reason for granting a variance. And that's what you're saying, that it's inconvenient.
Well, what I'm saying is water access in the waterfront commercial residential district is historically commonly enjoyed by.
No,
practitioners.
I read all
Yeah,
that,
well,
but basically, item B is saying that. So what I'm asking, Ron, is that we're ruled by these conditions. And your answers cause us to have pause because, I mean, you're a nice guy and yeah, we want to give you a variance, but the reason for the variance doesn't follow the rules of the variance.
Well, I think it's how you interpret things and those, what is a variance for in any, how else would you answer the question of why you need a variance unless it somehow or another benefits you? What I provided were two reasons. One is the historical access to the site. And two, I did give you a reason that is a practical reason too, which convenience might be one thing, safety going up and down those stairs with kayaks. And so, you can think about it in a reverse way too, which is our ability to just enjoy our property. So another reason might be we need this variance so we can enjoy the property. We're on the water. We would love to get to the water, but because of the height of our dock, outside of on a high tide, every once in a while, my kids have jumped in with their dry suits on. They're older now, they don't do that as much. But we want to be able to enjoy our property. And to enjoy our property, we want to be able to get to the very water that our property, and that's why I had the first sentence in there about the historical use of the water by those waterfront properties. I think using the Stranick dock or the stairs between the Stranicks, somebody could conclude, oh, that's just a convenience thing. But if you believe that activity, recreation, that's my workout. I paddleboard for my workout. So my health, I'm going down to those stairs. I am older than I was in 2005. It's becoming harder and harder for me to do that. And it is difficult and frankly, at times not very safe getting up and down those stairs with our stuff. And when there's nobody here, my kids are grown and gone. My wife and I are here a lot. I'm carrying those kayaks by myself, and frankly, I don't think those are convenience as much as just almost health issues, with the only alternative being I simply don't do those activities. And I think this is a community that should, I know does, and also should, embrace, people who are trying to participate in the environment that we have around us. So I'm not sure, maybe I didn't answer that question exactly how would best suit anybody, but I'm trying to be candid and I do want, I guess from my perspective, want you to know that the first sentence is as important as the second sentence.
And that dock you can probably use for storage too, your kayaks and stuff.
That's it. Well, right now, that would be storage for right now, my wife it sometimes says, because she'll look, all the kayaks, I bring them up. We normally store them down on the lower deck. I have to bring them up to the front deck, the roadside deck, and we'll be here, for whatever period of time we're here, carry them down to the stairs, bring them back, they're stored there, and she endearingly, we're celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary this summer, but she endearingly will say, we look like we're the Clampets, because our stuff is stored up there, where, if we have this dock, that is where you will see our kayaks, that is where you'll see our paddleboards. That is where my cleaning table will be for my fish, and so there's, point well taken, there's a storage opportunity there for us also.
So what because I'm sure you went over this, but like Polly says, this is what we need. We need you to write about your safety needs and that, because on paper, it's just kind of seems like it would be nice. But on what I'm hearing from you right now is like, there is a real need. So I think that is what is needed, is, you know, to go over, this is the real need, this is the safety concerns we have in the future, you know, this is why. And I do appreciate that, you know, saying like, hey, the stairs aren't as safe for me as they used to be. You know, this is the weight I'm having to carry, this is how it would relieve the weight of carrying the kayaks, that kind of thing. And so I think that's what the point is being made is.
And I would only respond to that the documents that we filed are part of the record, but this meeting is part of the record too. So it would be a task, I'm not sure the benefit of me saying it, versus this is a recorded hearing. This is part of your record. I would hope, and I would ask that the planning and zoning board, you know, not ask me to just go write it just so that it's in a different form. I mean, you'll have minutes of this meeting. So I would hope, I'm hoping to obviously get it approved. I think that my statements here have equal weight as in the right written word. It's just coming in a different form. So that would be my request.
So the other question I have is, how was it determined that 10 feet or that you need that the dock should be 10 feet wide?
I have, been on Walt's dock a lot. We, at one point, Walt mentioned earlier, we were looking at first, it was going to need a number of variances to get around from the Walsh, the Tuggles Boathouse, Walsh side. 10 feet, I'm looking for safety. So at one point, we had drawings that had 4 foot wide coming around the side. This is not part of this variance, but and I measured out 4 feet, and I'm standing there and I'm docked, and that's not safe. And 10 feet, I mean, there's going to be activity on that. I need there to be stability, and so that's the number that we came up with. I believe that's a to go to 7 feet, for instance, versus 10. There is the wider it is, the more stable it will be for activity on it. And there will undoubtedly be more than one person on it at times. And I don't want a dock that's wobbling back and forth, in the slough. So I think 10 feet is going to provide that stability that I'll need to pull things on and off and do work. So that's my answer.
Okay.
Pontoons they're prefab too, aren't they?
The pontoons that you're going to use.
Actually, we're using those new neoprene, like what you see down here at the, for the Otter deal.
Yeah.
I think the Corps of Engineers have changed the rules a little bit, so we're going with the latest, the neoprene foam field. Part of the reason we need the extra space is so it's not so steep going down too.
And with that extra space, from my reading, this dock is to get in and out of the water. And but you did talk about your fish table and things. Will this dock be used for storing a fish table that might attract otters, or what will this?
There will be nothing. I have no interest in having otters on the dock. If anything is happening, I mean, I learn every day. I grew up in downtown Detroit, but I'm thrilled to be in Alaska here. If I have a fish table down there and it starts attracting anything that I don't think is good for us at all, then the fish table is gonna move back up top where it's been for years. But the goal is, so I don't really know, I've never had a floating dock in my entire life, so I don't know exactly what it's gonna do or how it's gonna, I can guarantee I'm gonna be having a cup of coffee down there. I'm gonna be getting in and out of it. It is gonna have the storage, but I don't know exactly 100% of how we'll use it. I just believe that we will use it both effectively and appropriately and in a way that I think is beneficial to our experience here in Solovia.
It's a shame that you didn't think about a floating dock when you built it, when you built your house, because then you would have made allowance for it. And
Yeah. I can't, that was a long time ago. I don't know whether, I never did think about a floating dock, and that's true. I didn't. But I didn't know, I mean, I have 15 years of experience now in Solovia learning about what it is that what we need, we all have lists of what we would like, what we need, what we hope to get, and try to embrace things as best we can. And that's what we're trying to do here. It's, I think in 2005, it was a challenge for us to even be able to access the road, which, so you look at your challenges for the day and you try to address them to the best of your ability.
I would like to say that once I got mine permitted, talking to John and several others, that was a pretty historic thing. He said everybody had one. And then talking to one of the old timers.
Talking to me?
No, John at the fuel depot. He said that was historic, that everybody had their own dock. And one of the old timers told me they used to park a plane in front of mine, a float plane. And they had their dock that they access. And the other good reason he needs it is he'd be on my dock the whole time if you don't let him. So
what?
he'll be on my dock the whole time if you don't let him. So anyway, I can say that they probably use it more than anyone on the slough. They're the most active, and which I think is a good thing. So I would.
So John, now I have a question about this fish table. Do you plan on leaving the fish table on the floating dock in the winter?
No, I wouldn't leave anything on a
Good
floating
answer.
dock in the winter. I mean, I've never had a floating dock. I can't tell you exactly what I'll do. I can tell you there will be nothing that could be, I think we've all experienced the winds over the last couple of winters. My grill is roped to the railing. I mean, I think all of us have learned a lot about.
Well, I guess the other thing is this winter was so cold and we did have a lot of ice and things like that. And you don't really think of ice jams on the slough or anything like that. But I'm just wondering if you've given any thought to possibly making your floating dock so that it could be out of the water in the winter.
I have not addressed that. I don't know if I'd probably take it, I'm here a lot. As the years go by, I'm here more and more in the winter. If I see a problem developing, I have a keen interest in protecting my dock and our place. I mean, I
understand that, but I'm just wondering, what your plans are for the dock.
This year, so I was here, over the Christmas and New Year's, and it was actually quite warm until New Year's Eve. Remember, it got windy, and it was, so if we're having a warm winter, I don't suspect that I would detach it. If we were having a winter where it looked like there was potential damage to the dock, again, I have more interest than anybody in protecting it, and I'll learn. I mean, I'm going to learn. That's what I do.
If you detach it, we pull it down to the city dock, or where do you?
I don't know. I haven't gotten that far. I mean, I haven't needed to do that. If I ended up having to detach it, I would have to figure something out. Our friends of ours just bought a lot across the slough. I mean, there's always going to be, I think it's Ben Franklin, necessity is the mother of invention. And when I have the necessity, I'm gonna figure something out. Right now, I've never been in that experience, so I don't. My goal would be that I don't have to detach it, and that we have great winners, but not winners that present risk to the dock. But if we have one, I'm gonna be eager to protect it.
You got a boat ramp on the other side of the slough up there.
There's a boat ramp right next to the Pulis's old place, so you could go there. I, need to figure out, talk to somebody if I would do, put it on their property somewhere there. There's people, and every year we need more people.
Polly,
People help each other out.
Polly,
Yes,
I've been here since 1979 and lived on the slough basically. And I've never seen a problem with ice as a big issue for anything. And we're more exposed than anybody because we live right on the end of the road. So I don't see that's an issue for John.
okay. Any other questions for the testifier?
Madam Chair? I
Yes.
don't have a question. I just have a piece of information that in the laydown on page 49 from one of their previous applications that addresses the lot size and usage. And lot size is approximately 4,250 square feet. So it knocks, that's what it says right here.
On page 49?
49, yep. So that would just knock down the percentage to 54%. If you were interested in that little piece
Okay.
of data.
And I can, for what it's worth, that document would have highly likely been prepared by Tim.
Any other questions for Mr. Seedorf? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission for comments. Discussion.
Is it time to make a motion or what are we doing?
We're waiting for discussion.
Okay,
The first thing that came to my mind as I was reading this application was ice flow. Just because even though I have lived here all my life, we did have, the first time ever that I can remember, there was about 20 feet of ice out in the water at Linda's Beach, which is impressive to me. That is at the opening of the bay. That's an insane amount of ice. So that was my first concern when I read this application was ice flow to slough. Because that can damage and I know you're very interested in the safety of your house, but ice flow could damage pilings and houses on the entire slough. And so of course, we don't want to restrict water flow because that will just encourage ice accumulation in the cold winters. It was very interesting what Walter said about how it helps shift the ice. But yeah, that was my main concern when I read this was, will the dock be there year round? And how will it affect ice flow in the slough and how will it affect the rest of the properties? That's my main thought.
were you speaking about ice?
Yes,
Okay, I don't know if you heard my comment about being here since 79 and not having an issue in the slough about ice. I've seen it frozen over in the slough. I've seen the ice come and go. It usually breaks up because of the tides that we have here and doesn't present a problem. And we've not, for our property, we've, like I say, live right on the point where the ice comes and goes into the harbor and back out again, and not ever had a problem.
Well, I mean, I think that is good information. However, I mean, ice and cold temperatures and high tides have affected houses on the slough before. And so that's why I was concerned. It's because I do know of people living on the slough who were affected by that. And so I don't, my main worry would be creating a problem where ice flow, high tides, all combined to do property damage. That it's true.
So have you lived on the slough? I'm sorry, Jennifer, I just was wondering if you live on the slough, have you observed this issue, or is it just something that other people have told you?
I've observed it and I have been told. I mean, I've lived here my whole life. And so I've observed it and I've heard people talk about the damage to their property.
You probably got insurance for liability and stuff anyway.
Would it be appropriate for me to respond?
No,
If a member asked me to
No.
answer a question?
Oh,
no, not at this time.
Okay.
If you want him to answer a question, you have to ask me if he can answer. Just because that's Robert's rules.
Yeah.
So do you have a question for the testifier?
yeah, about insurance for liability and all that stuff.
Okay.
Does break loose.
Okay, Mr. Cedar.
Thank you for that question. Yes, number one, we do have liability insurance. I'm in a business that is very concerned about liability issues, so we have a substantial amount of protection there. In addition, if a piece of my property damaged, for instance, Walter's property, then I would be liable for that, if that were in fact the case. And so that would be, another way, that's another incentive for the property owner, whoever it is, and any of us, to make sure we take care of our property, whatever that property may be. And I also agree, I do come down here quite a bit. I'd agree with Mr. Lethine. I've never had issues with the ice at our property. I've never had any, including this past winter. So anyway, I hope that was answered your question.
Any other questions? Any discussion?
If there's no further discussion, I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote?
Forsberg,
Yes.
Carluccio,
Yes.
Levine,
Yes,
Gerber.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So we have
thanks, John.
We have to attach reasons for granting the variance.
My reason for granting was his clarification on the reasons why he wanted it, safety reasons, for, him, his worry about safety going up and down his neighbor's stairs. And he feels that this will, better he and his wife's health and safety.
Safety.
Do you have, are there any additional reasons?
Better use of your property.
In addition to, so we'll add that to the reasons that he gave. And to override the inconvenience factor. Okay, I don't know if we need them, why don't we make a motion to add those findings to the motion?
Could you repeat what the findings are? What, I can't hear what you're talking about.
Okay, sorry, Chris. In addition to the application, we are adding the finding of safety. And if you will state what you said, Kathleen.
My reasons for voting yes was the applicant brought forward at the meeting about worrying about he and his wife's health and safety, and his feeling that this dock would alleviate that concern.
Okay, thank you.
So you want to make that motion, Chris, to add that to the?
Yes, make the motion to add those two items.
Any discussion? Any objection? Findings are attached. And with that, we will go on to the next item, no commission business. Any staff reports?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Pardon?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
So what is I would ask you, what is the status of our matrix or your matrix?
It is on the agenda for the next council meeting Monday. and
Monday?
For a discussion item first before it's introduced. Yep, Monday, 6 p.m.
Okay. Item K, comments of the public. Like to make any comments?
Just thank you for your consideration, and I hope, I think it'll all go well. Thanks.
Oh,
Comments of the commission. Chris?
No comments, just thank you to staff for their work.
Roger?
Constructive.
Kathleen? And I would like to thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Cedar, for being here and for answering our questions. It certainly, I think, made a difference. And with that, thank you to the staff for being here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And our next regular scheduled meeting will be, are you kidding me, July 1st? Is everybody going to be in town on the 1st or available on the 1st?
I will be.
Been here since last January.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'll be here too. So the next regular scheduled meeting is July 1st, 2020. And with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
So ordered.
Good night, all. See ya.
Chris?
Nice sunset.
Interesting, it never set anymore. The sun has stopped.
Yeah.
knock on. So knock on.